guys, it's Justine here from I Should Read That, and it's time for your weekly reading tea break. I usually do these on Monday, but quite frankly, I wanted to have a nap after work yesterday, so we postponed it until today. Sometimes. Being an adult was pretty awesome. So I was not reading a whole lot, but I did manage to finish 2 books yesterday. So I do have a couple of things to actually report, and guys, Sockpocalypse is almost over. I'm on pair 5, and when I finish pair 5, I'll be free. I'm actually quite pleased with myself and with my sock progress, because deciding you're gonna make hand-knit Christmas gifts for 5 people about a month before the holidays, it's not a great idea, but I think we're gonna pull this off. But it is the last full week before Christmas festivities start, so we are going to be starting this week off with a bang. I have decided that I'm going to be doing 7 books in 7 days, which is something that I occasionally do on TikTok when I decide I really want to fry my brain. The best time for doing 7 books in 7 days is not when you're struggling to focus with reading, but I've never been known for my great decision making, so we're just gonna roll with it. So let's start off with the books that I did actually read last week. If you managed to catch our reading sprints that Amber and I did, we had a lot of fun. It was slightly chaotic because I've never done a live before. Thank God Amber was there, or else it wouldn't have actually gone through. But I started and ended up finishing after the sprints Half a Soul by Olivia Atwater. This is a kind of cozy Regency fantasy book. I am not really one for Regency fantasy. It should be something that I love, but I actually haven't had great experiences with it. I don't know why. I have absolutely no idea why it doesn't work with my brain when I love, like, Regency romance, I love history, and I love fantasy. You would think all of those things combined together would be something I'd love, but I don't tend to. However, I did end up loving Half a Soul. I was so, like, apprehensive in my last tea break because I said I was going to be reading this, and I just wasn't sure if I was going to like it or not, but I did. It was great. This is a Regency-inspired fantasy world, and we follow a girl named Dora, and when she was a child, she was essentially cursed by a fairy who took half of her soul. And when you only have half of a soul, it turns out that you don't feel things like fear or embarrassment, and she's like one step away from a social scandal. Her family, she lives with her aunt, is like completely like distraught by the idea of Dora messing up her cousin's chances of a good marriage. So when they go down to London for her cousin's season, Dora plans to just kind of be a wallflower, stick to the fringes, and then of course she meets the incredibly infuriating but mysteriously attractive Lord Sorcier, who is sort of the king's magician. This is filled with like banter and snark, and I loved Dora. She was an amazing character. She's very socially conscious, and I really ended up liking the Lord Sorcier, what's his name? Elias. I completely blanked on his name for a second there. Even though I don't tend to enjoy sort of love interests who are kind of assholes at the start, because in real life, I would just be like, why are we bothering? Sometimes I struggle with like the transition of my brain into fiction. But yeah, I ended up quite liking him. I loved the best friend, the kind of golden retriever best friend that he has. And overall, I just was really charmed by this. I really enjoyed it. There are 2 more books in this series. They're kind of companion novels. One follows their daughter, and one follows, I believe, a maid in a household who we haven't met yet. So I'm looking forward to getting to those. I might read them this month because they are quite short books, and we'll talk about my December reading in just a bit. Yeah, this was like a solid 4-star read. I really enjoyed this. And I had a lot of grand plans for the month of December for my reading. I was going to be doing this whole, like, you know, 2022 releases that I was really excited about but never got around to reading. Great idea in theory. In practice, my brain just absolutely cannot handle that right now. I'm really struggling to focus. I'm having a lot of issues with brain fog at the moment. Like, my anxiety and depression friends, like, shout out. Anyone who's ever felt that knows it sucks. And I am just really struggling to focus on reading. So what I'm going to be doing instead is I've just chucked all TBR plans out the window, and I'm just reading whatever I can that's either short or an audiobook. So I ended up digging through my Kindle, and I found All My Friends Are Superheroes by Andrew Kaufman. This is a book that I got as a recommendation from a booktuber 4 years ago, 3 years ago. it's been sat on my Kindle for a long time. I read it, and I think that if I was in a different mood, if I wasn't really foggy, I would have enjoyed this much more than I did. As it stands, it's a really weird book. It's a very strange little book, basically about a man who, his wife is a superhero, and she is hypnotized on their wedding day to no longer be able to see him, and he's trying to convince her to like see him again. It's all metaphor. My brain just wasn't into this. So I think it's going to be one that I revisit because it's very, very short. I don't tend to reread books, but I think if I'm in the right mood for this kind of like weird, strange little book, then I will really like it. But as it stands, it wasn't necessarily for me, but it was something that I could breeze through really easily, and I felt good about myself for finishing a book. So I guess it's a win-win. And then I listened to the audiobook for Mythos. I finished this today. This is Stephen Fry's sort of take on Greek myths, and I really, really enjoyed it. Shout out to all of my Greek mythology kids. I was obsessed when I was a kid, and it's only over the past few years when I read Natalie Haynes' Pandora's Jar, which is a fantastic nonfiction book about like women in Greek mythology. I realized like there's a lot of sanitizing that Greek mythology gets when it's presented to children, quite rightfully, because they're very, very rapey and they're really questionable in a lot of ways, not necessarily child appropriate. I'm realizing quite how like out there some of them are. So I really enjoyed his kind of interpretations, especially when sort of a lot of mythology tends to veer slightly into the ridiculous from time to time. If you've ever read any Norse mythology, you'll know that as well. And his voice is absolutely perfect for that. I also really enjoyed the fact that he breaks down a lot of etymology, which I believe is the study of words. Entomology is the study of bugs. I didn't look that up before I started. I probably should have, but I believe it's the entomology of a lot of words, all of the words that we get from the Greek and from the sort of stories in Greek mythology. I really, really enjoyed that. He reads the audiobook. It's really good. I picked it up in like a daily deal like 2 years ago or something like that. Finally got around to it. Really, really enjoyed it. I gave this 4.5 out of 5 stars. I think he's done another one. I don't know if it's Greek mythology or not, but he's done another kind of mythology book, and I'm definitely going to keep an eye out for that when I'm allowed to buy books again. In terms of what I'm currently reading, I actually don't really have anything on the docket, so I need to figure out what I'm going to pick up next. And I think an option may be The Honeys by Ryan LaSala. This could be a really good book for 7 books in 7 days because it is Tuesday. I've read 2 books this week. This could be my 3rd one. I might also go ahead and dig into my Kindle library because I have a little collection for novellas. I didn't really see anything that was inspiring me yesterday when I was having a look, but I might do a little bit of digging and see if there's anything good there. In terms of books that I have hauled, you guys would be very proud of me. I've only got 1 book to add, I believe, and that is The Mysteries of Thor Manor by Margaret Rogerson. This is the kind of like follow-up novella to Sorcery of Thorns, which I read when it came out, and I remember really enjoying, but I'm going to be honest, you guys, I don't remember a goddamn thing about that book, especially not the ending. But I really enjoyed that, so I'm going to do that thing where I pretend that I remember a lot more about a book that I read like 2 years ago and read the sequel. It's short, it comes out in January, and it's something that I can sort of tack on to my NetGalley ratio, and again, feel good about myself for finishing a book. Otherwise, as I said, it is the sort of last full week before Christmas. Christmas always destroys my TBR because we give and receive a ton of books in my family, so I'm going to be adding a ton of stuff onto my TBR after Christmas time. And we have this kind of like yearly, very, very unofficial, very casual reading competition where my mom, my dad, and I all kind of like start eyeing each other, and we're like, how many books have you read this year? And then we try to beat each other without actually saying we're trying to beat each other. My mom is currently in the lead. I think I'm at 109 or 110 now, and she, as of the weekend, was at 112, and she's retired, so she's probably read like 5 books, so I need to beat her because I usually do. I gotta do it. I gotta get some more reading in here. What's the fun of reading if you don't make it competitive, right? So yeah, otherwise I'm just going to be thinking about my best books of 2022 videos that I'm going to be doing. It's probably going to be a whole series. I'm going to be thinking about 2023 new releases. So we're going to have a little bit more content coming. I've been doing 2 videos a week, this and 1 more, but I might be boosting it up a little bit for sort of December into January because there's a lot of stuff to talk about. But yeah, we'll see how it goes. I would love to know in the comments below what you've been reading this week, if you read any of these books, what you thought of them, and what your plans for this week are. And if you want to chat a little bit more, I have a Discord server. We're having a really good time, especially with the TBR support group at the moment, so that is linked down below if you want to go ahead and join us. Otherwise, I post bookish content to this channel fairly frequently, so go ahead and hit subscribe, check back soon, and I will see you next time.